well. So maybe just take it away and introduce our guest Javier today.
Okay, awesome. Hey, Javier, are you here with us? Good. Okay. Well,
There he
I'm
is.
here. I'm here. How's it
hi.
going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Totally. So, Javier here is lived on the Ganjier property when it was not the Ganjier property, when it was the YMAA Retreat Center, and came here in like 2004. I mean, you'll get into it, but you were here a while ago and stayed here a while. And so we met at Canifest. You met Derek at Canifest, and wanted to come up, and you guys came up. You and Justin, who runs Inner Bloom Wellness, came up a little bit ago, and we hung out. And you're doing some really cool things here in the Garberville community surrounding Qigong and cannabis, and sort of also merging these two worlds that we, uh, you know, by stumbling upon it, ended up merging in some way. So I'd love if you would introduce yourself to everyone and, talk a little bit about what you're doing to start.
How's it going? My name's Javier, originally from San Antonio, Texas. I moved to, I call it the mountain, sometimes call it the retreat center. That's, so I have to correct myself now. Alex told me you guys call it the campus, which is great too. So I moved there 2007, no, actually 2009. Prior to that, I took two-week trips up on the hill. Yeah, exactly. Up on the hill. And I moved to the mountain from Florida in 2009. Yeah, but like I said, prior to that, two trips to I took two-week trips applying to Dr. Yong's 10-year discipleship program, a live-in study program. It was basically organized similar to college. So we had like a fall, spring, and semesters. Winter had a month off or something like that. And then the summer we had like 2 months off. And in the summer, I would stay and help Dr. Yong, and we would run a series of 5 week workshops. And so I moved out there in 2009, and then I graduated in 2018. In that time, we had also a 5-year group that graduated in 2019, and then also a 3-year group that graduated in 2019, and we all lived and stayed and trained and studied and blood, sweat, and tears on the mountain.
Amazing. What was the application process like? That's the first thing I was curious about.
The application, it was funny. I was studying Tai Chi in Florida, and this was around like 2005 or something like that. I grew up as a martial artist training karate, and my search was for like the feeling, the energy, the mysticism of the arts, and so that led me to Tai Chi. And then a couple of people said, "Hey, you got to meet this guy. He's looking for some students to take to the mountains to train for a long-term program, for a 5-year program." At that time, it was a 5-year program. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And I said, "Okay, that sounds cool." That in my mind, I was thinking that's really interesting because as a martial artist, anyone who grows up watching like movies, you just kind of the romantic of martial arts. You have this dream of living with your teacher, in the woods and training and going through this rigorous training process and learning process, and you just eat it up, and you get all the wisdom and you get all the techniques, yeah, Karate Kid, exactly. So that's what led me there. And so they said, well, you should come to meet this master and attend a workshop. So I went and attend the workshop, and I did a little bit of an interview. I didn't necessarily participate in the workshop, but I watched it. And one of the things that struck me was when Dr. Young was doing his correction, he would slap people's hands to correct them. And I thought that was really interesting. I've never seen that. And he took me outside for an interview during a break that he had. And another thing I remember is during a break, he went to like the corner to meditate. I think during the lunch break, he went to the corner to meditate, and he was just sitting there. And I thought, wow, that was interesting too. But when he interviewed me, he asked me a few questions that he asked. He was also interviewing another potential candidate as well at that time. So already there's this idea of like competition and the application process. So he asked me a number of questions. Can you take spanking? That's one of the questions that he asked. Can you take spanking? And what are you gonna do on the mountain when you get horny? And so he was asking me all these sort of invasive, I thought, and funny questions. And it kind of struck me, but I realized those are the things that he needed to inquire about to really see if somebody was interested, because it was a huge commitment. What he was doing was going through a traditional cultural process to accept students as his own sons. And so that's a big deal. And there you go through this discipleship ceremony where you do a sequence of bows, like you're on the edge of a carpet and you do a series of bows. You go in front of him, you present tea. He takes it if to signal that he's taking you on as a disciple. And so it was very important and meaningful for him. And I think for people in the West, they didn't really understand it, didn't really know how to perceive it or engage with it. But for him, it was a big deal, because he's accepting you as a son, and that's part of the culture, and the process, and then the dynamic and the interpersonal, relationship as well. So there's a deep bond and a deep care, and that's so the process is then to, after that interview process, to come for a 2-week trial period. And that's when you come to the Hill and you participate in a similar way that the program is run. So I went and did that, and you do a little bit of an interview. You meet people that are associated with the group, with the program, with the organization. It's an international organization, so there's a little bit of interviewing process there and a feeling out as well. So he's watching, and everybody's watching you, and just seeing like, hey, can you get along with other people? Can you live on the hill? Can you be isolated from society? Can you do without your technology and distractions and stuff like that? So that 2-week, I went through that 2-week process, and I went back home. I wasn't accepted to the program because I was too old. I think I was like, I don't know, 24 or something like that. And he wanted people that were like age 18 to 21 or something like that. So for him, I was too old for the program. And yeah, so what was a 5-year program ended up being a 10-year program. I wasn't accepted on the first year, but I went back after one of the disciples left, he asked me and he reached out to me, do you want to come back? Somebody left, there's an opening. You can come back for another 2-week trial period and we can see how it goes. And so I did that, and I was successful at that time in showing him that I was training and I was still learning and I was getting stronger and I was getting more fit and I was willing and ready to, endure any hardship. So on the second year, I was accepted. And so I completed a 9-year program with him. So that's the history of the application process.
And, can you talk us through like what an average day was like up here on the mountain?
Yeah. The first thing you do is wake up and make sure that you're not late for meditation. So you're waking up, you're tired, you're sore, cold, don't want to go outside because it's pretty cold, and hoping that you're not late or you're not running late or you haven't woken up late. So, because you don't want to get whipped. So we made an agreement that if we were to show up late to meditation, for every minute that we were late, we would receive 1, and it was 1 whip, and it was capped at 10. So you couldn't get more than 10, which is good. But 10 was still pretty bad. But yeah, we made an agreement. All right, well, that's the discipline that we're going to choose to exercise. So meditation started at 6 a.m. He served tea prior to meditation.
Beautiful.
So we would go, we'd have a little conversation. A lot of times people just like, half asleep, just making it through and just wandering in and just plopping down on the mat, and some people are stretching, some people are rolling, doing the massage roller. I did a lot of that, and getting hydrated and getting ready to sit. So it was about a 50-minute sit, and then we did some recovery drills, which were basically to stretch and massage, self-massage, and prepare. Right after that, we got up and went out and we did speed training. So we went outside, we did speed training. So hand speed, foot speed, and he would time us, and he'd say go, and then he'd say stop, and then we would do a little bit of white crane Qigong outside while he would go inside and he would prepare breakfast for everybody. So he'd cook breakfast. He'd make oatmeal, make eggs, fried eggs, hard-boiled eggs. He'd cut up some veggies and some fruit. And so from 9 to 10, we had, so 6 to 8, we had training. 8 to 9, we had breakfast, and then training started at 9 to 11. 11, we would come in and we would do an hour of Mandarin. 12 to 2 would be our lunch and rest. 2, we would return and do external practices, more of the hard. We would run the mountain, and that would be our Kung Fu training. So I'm assuming most people have been to the campus. Most people on the call have been to the campus.
Many have.
Many have.
I would say most. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
like
have to do a
a
head count.
majority. And I
Yeah.
am going to need more detail on what you mean by run the mountain.
Yeah. So we would. Someone says I'm super.
I've been keeping
new.
up on that one, Elizabeth.
I think I'm so interested because there are so many of these elements that are built into the campus that if you don't know the history of it, they seem so odd, like the ropes and things nailed into trees and
That all
and
resonated with me immediately. I was
right.
like, things to climb. This is amazing.
This is what you want. But yeah, no, that I think driving up that hill is hard. Like I'm terrified to drive up it. I think I would die before I ran to the top of it. I don't even think I could run down it. I think I would just probably fall off at some point.
Down is harder.
I had to do that run from Salmon Creek one time because I couldn't get a hold of someone, and I was in a 2-wheel drive car, and I had some guests with me, and I had to get them up the hill. So I was like, all right, well, I've trained this for years, so I should be able to run up. And so I had to just jog up to the house and get the 4-wheel drive car, come back down. So running the mountain.
Yeah.
Do you wear shoes? Do you wear shoes?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we did have one prodigy that would walk around barefoot, and he came when he was like 14 years old, and he trained. I don't know if you heard of Quentin, but he trained from when he was 14 years old and left when he was 18 or 19 or something like that. He'd walk around the gravel trail barefoot. I don't think he ran barefoot. So if you've ever been to the campus, then you may have walked down to the creek. And it was at the creek where we would go at 2:00 to we would do, it's called Jing training. Jing is you're basically training your ligaments and your tendons for whip-like motion in your arms and your hands. And the way that we would do that is we would throw rocks. So we had to like whip and throw rocks, kind of like throwing darts, or even like striking. So we did that for like 30 minutes. And then we would fill up backpacks, or we had backpacks that we would fill up backpacks from the creek, or rocks from the creek, put them in the backpack. And then so we had to run up. And we did that for 2 years, maybe 3, and we did it every day, 5 days a week, so Monday through Friday at 2 or 2:30. And the goal was to run up with 50 pounds like in 12 minutes. And so that was the training process, and that was one of the most grueling and one of the most difficult and challenging and spiritually inducing, I think, exercises and practices. So yeah, we would do that at 2:30. Would run up, and that was our warm up. And so we would get up, and then he would lead us in some kung fu training. And then after that, it sort of kind of died. It would sort of slow down. We would do like candle meditation around 4, 5, 6. So the ropes that you see, or the rope that you see, the bars that you see, that was all included in our afternoon training. After we run, then we would do like pull-ups, and we'd do like a series of push-ups on the concrete in the gym. We would do a punching bag training. We would do our staff training. We had, I didn't see those when I was there a couple weeks ago, but we had posts that were dug into the ground. I don't know if you guys removed those or something like that, but there were posts that were dug. There were basically trees that were cut, and they were dug, and the holes were dug, and then the posts were set into the ground. And so those we used as like striking training and bumping training. There was a lot of hours of that.
I had never seen those. We certainly didn't remove them since I've been here.
Okay.
There was a series of like stumps that were laid in the ground that I assumed were for like jumping on or something.
Yeah.
And then there's one tree back there with a towel wrapped around it that I assumed was used. My best guess was it was used for mock sword fighting, but please, if that's because I found all these wooden swords.
I think it was
proximal to
I think it was just conditioning the arms.
For conditioning.
A lot of our training was body conditioning. So, which is a lot of striking of the body in various ways, including the arms and the legs. And so the post like that, wrapped with a towel or a carpet, and then duct tape around to keep that all in.
That's exactly what's over there. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
No, I know, right? Like, I'm like this. Well, it's just interesting to me. I'm curious what would prompt you to be drawn to something that is like so physically punishing. Like, because you're more or less, I mean, we're all human, right? Like, so to be able to adhere to the rules all the time is probably impossible. So like you're going up there knowing that you're going to get beaten.
It's a mental, spiritual thing, right?
Yeah, like, am
Yeah.
I just
Very
weak? Is
appealing.
that why this
I
is
don't know
not
what that.
appealing to me?
I
Is this
no,
saying a lot about me?
it it's a great question. I appreciate the question. And in our preliminary emailing back and forth, I a lot of stories came back to me with your questions, and I did a response just to kind of prepare. But I'll tell you one thing: during the application process, I was talking have a conversation with Dr. Yang, and I think this was the second time that I was applying. So by this time, I'm already like 4 or 5 years invested in, because I had met him. I went and visited him in Boston, and I wasn't accepted the first year, and then I came back for another trial period. And from the house, we're walking towards the greenhouse to go down the hill to the creek, and we're with a couple of more people. And as we're walking down, he asked me, so do you still want to do do you really still want to do this program? And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to run the mountain today. I know that. And I don't know if I can do this every day, because I'm tired and my legs hurt, and really I just kind of want to collapse right now. So there was a clear distinction that in that moment where my mind was telling me something, but like my heart was telling me something else. And in my heart, I knew that no, this was my place. This is where I need to be. And as much as I don't want to do it, or as much as I'm afraid of it, this is, in a way, this is what you asked for. So this is where you are. Are you going to meet the challenge, and are you going to persevere and go through the process, or are you going to walk away? And at that time, I already had made the decision. My heart already made the decision, but my mind was just wanting to resist the rigor, which was just the process of the body, and and getting stronger, and cultivating resiliency, and strength and courage is a part of that adversity, as someone um, put it in the chat too. Absolutely. So the idea is to my girlfriend, who is a teacher. She introduced me to the concept of being in your comfort zone, your growth zone, and your panic zone. I didn't know that concept at the time, but the idea for a lot of us was like, how much could you touch those edges and, sort of still, survive? And it's basically just, yeah, putting a lot of hardship on yourself. It's not always the best. It's not always the best idea. It's not always the best ideology. It's not always the best, because you can overshoot it, definitely, and hurt yourself. But that's also part of the learning process. It's also part of the journey too. So, and that was a huge lesson for myself too, because I had to learn how to stop beating myself down. I needed to learn how to stop essentially the difference between killing myself and nourishing myself. So learning the process of, yeah, stepping out of my comfort zone into my challenge zone, but not into the panic zone or the killing zone. And it's very what's the word, relevant, especially in terms of training martial arts. Martial arts has concepts, moralistic concepts and theories centered around the notion of defense and killing. When and what are the appropriate conditions to kill? So you have to ask yourself that while not killing yourself, and then also learning how to nourish yourself. And through that whole process, you really learn about nourishing oneself, and then trying to nourish, your environment and your community, and by extension, the world.
I have a
So
So
that
question
was
for
my
you,
journey.
if I may. if I
Sure.
may.
Yes.
You said you spent 9 years there
I
in the
I
program?
I graduated at the end of the 10-year program,
Mhm.
and I came out on the second year, so I graduated 9 year and a 9-year program. Yeah.
So what was your biggest takeaway mentally and spiritually? Physically, it was obvious
The
what you went through, but
Yeah, that's a good question. I often think about that, and only one other person has asked me who participated with me in the program too. Um, the only thing that you can control is your breath. And so many moments in our lives, the things that we think we can control, we find we can't. The things that we want to control, we find we can't. And oftentimes when you're sitting there in the moment, really the best strategy tool that you can pull out of your toolbox is to regulate your breath, engage with your breath, and endure, be patient, wait, and respond from a uh, from a reflective place, not a reactive place.
it's hard to
Beautiful.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
That is everything. Yeah, it's amazing like how many parallels there are between the training and like more modern concepts in mental health and in like overall healthfulness, just said in slightly different ways. And I want to dig into what you were saying a little bit earlier and provide a little bit of context for it because of what I've been thinking about. Because for me, it's one of the things that resonated so deeply because I come from a world of challenging my comfort zone. That was like my upbringing was very much like comfort zone therapy and pushing the boundaries of that. And it led me to a life of more on the side of destroying myself and having to back into how do I recreate comfort in my life. I got to a point of not being comfortable with comfort. And in reading Dr. Young's first book, it when you were talking about the morning ritual, it brought up a very specific like conflict that I think it mirrors the conflict, the internal conflict that we're all in. And you talked about it a little bit in your decision to actually take the program. And in the book, it's the yi versus the zin, right? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sheen. Yeah. Yeah.
Sheen?
Yeah.
Okay, Sheen, cool. I've only read it,
Yeah.
so this is going to be my
Yeah.
opportunity to pick your
I
mind
hear
on
you.
pronunciation a little bit. So yi and shin, is that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it it was talking about how like when you go to practice qigong, you want to be comfortable, you want to have your like core be warm, you want to like cover your legs. Like it was talking about comfort. And I've heard this a lot even in like exercise, right? Like when you go to compete in exercise, like you want your two shoes tied right, you want everything to be correct, like go to the bathroom first, take care of everything so you have no excuses, right? That nothing in your head can stand in your way. Um, and there's this dichotomy, right? On the one side, you want to be comfortable and present. And it even mentioned like if you're tired and you're falling asleep, go sleep first. Don't meditate in that state. But on the other side, there's this rigor to the program, which I found really beautiful. It's so beautiful that he demanded you get up at 6 a.m., but then also cooked you breakfast by 11. Like that tough love relationship is like very unique to this kind of situation. And I found that was striking as well. But there is a dichotomy there. There is something in conflict there of like, you have to force yourself awake. You need to be here. It's at this time. There is a strictness to it. And then at the same time, there's a prioritization of rejuvenation, of comfort, of healing. And I'd love for you to dig a little bit into like how Dr. Yang talked about that balance, and then how you've kind of applied that balance moving forward a little deeper.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is generational. There's generational concepts, there's cultural concepts, there's East and West concepts. There's the relational dynamic. So there's the interpersonal layer as well. And Dr. Yang understands what's the saying that the youth is wasted on the young. So when you get older, you realize like the youth that was wasted, or how easy it is to waste one's youth, where those are basically the prime. You have all of the hormones, you have the energy, you have the cell regeneration capability, and so that's the time to really harden the body. And in terms of the culture, Dr. Yang knew that people just wanted to go for it. In this West, it's like in the Western mindset and framework, it's like you go for it, you go hard. It's go big or go home. Right. And
And
then it's the father and the son aspect. It's like the hard and the soft love, the internal and the external love. Yeah, martial arts was, yeah, Tai Chi came from martial arts training. Yeah. And someone asked in the chat, so after the training, then what? So it's all you're trying to pick up the skills so that you can integrate them in your life. So now after the mountain, it's like, well, what are you going to do to challenge yourself spiritually? What are you going to do to challenge yourself mentally? What are you going to do to challenge yourself, not necessarily physically, but on those internal levels, where a lot of our experience is essentially is in the internal domain. Our emotions, our psychology, our self talk, and how we move in and out of mental health in the moment. So see if I can get back to your original question.
I think you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is just about
What
your
was
just like well, maybe talk a little bit about the yi and the shin. And those terms. It's probably the only part that I didn't clarify really well in my question too. I know
okay.
I've been getting familiar with these terms. I'm sure I confuse the hell out of everyone else.
A lot of people know monkey mind, and so the shin is monkey mind, emotional mind. And yeah. and then how do you transition out of the monkey mind and cultivate the wisdom mind, the horse mind, the steady mind? And it's through the challenge, it's through the rigor, it's through the adversity that allows you to cultivate the wisdom mind, the horse mind, to be non-reactive, but responsive from, yeah. So a responsive from a relaxed place. And that's the whole dichotomy of comfort, is you build the base of relax, because you're asking about that dichotomy and the comfort, and then the absence of comfort. So it's kind of like it's like your emotional and psychological center and home. You know where you're most relaxed, and it's probably the notion and the idea of set and setting as well. You can bring on and you can bring in and you can invite in challenge, adversity, rigor, to a place where you are comfortable, where you are at home, where you are relaxed, and you can challenge that relaxedness. You can put resistance upon your equilibrium, your balance, your emotional, psychological stability, and challenge your relaxed zone, and challenge your tools for relaxation. And so the the Kung Fu framework and journey that he lays out is from a complete relaxed place, which is also emotionally and psychologically neutral, which is what he talks about in the Yellow Book, the um, Qigong meditation, embryonic breathing. Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned set and setting, and obviously this place was very specifically chosen. Could you talk a little bit about like the set and setting here in terms of the training and how that has extended like into Humboldt as a whole for you? Because obviously you decided to stay here. You're not originally from here. And you know, the combination of those two things and the dichotomy that's there a little bit, having this be a mountain in Humboldt that was held for a very different purpose than most of the hillsides here in the county, right? Very, very different. And
Oh yeah.
that relationship like then, and how has it grown now as you've been applying it to your life outside of off of the hill, off of the
Yeah,
mountain?
you guys will probably appreciate this, but we were scared, and a lot of people in the community were scared when Dr. Young was trying to sell it. A lot of people were afraid that it was going to be turned into a large grow. And so how that would look was the house and the cabin, they would probably be kept or moved aside or what have you, but that whole hilltop would just be flattened. So if someone were to come in and they wanted to do a large grow, imagine that whole hilltop where from like the house to the cabin, just all flattened with like 2 or 3 large, greenhouses or something like that, right? So the set and the setting for Dr. Young, it was all about distraction, the removal of distraction. So for him, his dream was to build a center that was similar to that, and a training environment that was similar to that of ancient times. It was the teacher and it was the disciple, it was the teacher and the student, and they lived together and they ate together and they trained together and they learned to, from one another. So the biggest obstacle for the Western mind, and maybe for the Western millennial, me growing up 80s and 90s kid, and moving to the hill in my 20s, was being able to let go of all of the distractions and all of the comforts and the what would you call them, vices.
Mm-hmm.
Could you let go of all those and remove all those? And for the romantic, that's what the story is all about. It's just immersing yourself in the training, immersing yourself in the learning. And in hindsight, you realize that that's such a huge gift. That set in the setting for someone else to remove all those distractions for you. So all you have to do is worry about one thing. You don't even have to worry about planning your day. You don't have to worry about your schedule. Don't know where you're going to have to be or who you have to call, what appointment you have to make, where you're going to drive, if you have enough gas money, if you're paying your electric, your water. It's like, in a way, it's liberating too. It's restricting, but it's also liberating. So there's that dichotomy as well.
What comes up for me is that all of those things that, when somebody looks at this from the outside, they look at as like sacrifice and the discipline that you're cultivating. Dr. Young had to be there for all of it. Like without him taking that first, so yes, you got up at 6, but also he probably got up at 5 because he had to get you up at 6 and make sure, you know what I mean? And so that's the thing, is like, everybody thinks like, oh, to be the one who leads all the people, right? Like, oh, that's the goal, is to be the one who leads all the people. But it's like, not really. The one who leads all the people is the one who has to like do all of the things in order to lead the people. So really, there's a huge not necessarily sacrifice, but also kind of, yes, sacrifice on his part to live his life in service to all of these people that come up there to be of service to him.
Yeah, fair point. He often woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and he's a prolific writer, but he was very regimented and disciplined, and he would gloat, and he still does, that he has his life. He has his own life, and he's built his own life growing up as a poor Taiwanese kid in Taiwan during the occupation of Japan, and to come to the States, graduate from Purdue, become this prolific writer, and give a life, for himself and for his family. And that's what he asks of us. Do you have your life, or does your life have you? And so that's the journey that we're on. And a lot of times it's the question of, do you have your mind, or does your mind have you?
I have a question.
And so,
Right.
yes,
I'm sorry. Um,
sure.
I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and we used to watch the karate movies all the time, every weekend. And yeah, you're right. It was so fascinating about something would happen, and they get taught by a sensei and live with them, and and I even started getting into a little bit of Taekwondo as a kid. It didn't last long, and and it always fascinated for me. It was about the mental, okay, and being able to control my anger and my emotions, okay. And I do have an anger problem, okay. It's gotten better as I gotten older. I'm 61 now, but through the years, I've looked at different things. I had a book on Tai Chi, I did YouTube videos on Tai Chi and different things, and et cetera, et cetera. But I've got a metal knee that I can't bend all the way. Okay. I've got some joint issues. So some of the things I couldn't do. My question for you is kind of leading into where we're at now as a group, getting into the teas and the meditations and the microdosing and all coming together. My question for you is, for those of us like now, say I'm a beginner, where can we start that won't tax our bad joints or things like that, so that we can bring all this together with what you went, going through, and the Tai Chi and the mental thing, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, where can you start? It's always the question. Dr. Young would say the best qigong that you can do is the qigong that you do consistently.
Okay.
So the key is the consistency. And that's why he was such, that goes back to the previous question, is his discipline and his consistency, and just continuing to show up. And that's also the leadership too, in him being a leader, is continuing to show up and being consistent. So he would say the best people always ask me, what's the best qigong, what's the best qigong? Well, it's the qigong that you do consistently. And so I would say what I've learned is qigong needs a context and a goal for it to focus, for your mind to focus, for your attention to focus. So what's the environment, what's the context, and then within that, what's your goal in that? So if it's to walk comfortably, or if it's a fall prevention as you get older, or if it's to sit comfortably without pain, and then you become the craftsman, you become the artist that pulls in all of the things that you need as you sort of alchemize and figure out what's best for you. And that's also that's the path of having your mind, having your energy, having your emotion, having your psychology in you, your all of the things that you want to do, be, and accomplish on the inside really needs all of your attention. So to have your life, you need to have your mind. And so to have your mind, you need to limit the distractions, because that's all the distractions is where your mind is, and consequently your energy are being siphoned. And that's where the meditation comes in, the sitting still, the stillness comes in without moving. The 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 breath work as a strategy. We consider breath a strategy to upregulate or to downregulate. And so I hope that kind of answers your question. I would need to know, well, and it's the goal. It's one's personal journey. Well, what is your goal? What do you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve? How do you envision yourself? For me, I wanted to reach an ideal potential. I wanted to push myself to the limit and reach my potential, which I think I somewhat accomplished. And I've reached my physical peak. I've gone past my physical peak. So I'm not going to be able to reach a physical peak anymore in my lifetime. So I have to let that go. However, now I want to recalibrate. Well, how do I want to achieve efficiency of mind, emotion, and energy? And goes back to the whole mental processes, mental skills, and the skills and strategies, for that. So how do I want to use my energy efficiently? That's a goal for me. And how do I want to age gracefully? I know I'm on my way out, and we all are, right? And so I want to do that in a graceful way, and I want to be reminded, not to get caught up in the BS, and I want to present myself and contribute to the space, to the environment, and to the world in a relaxed, comfortable, contributing way. And so I can't allow myself, I can get angry too. I can get frustrated, I can get irritable, and I have a deep programming that's probably more, within my DNA and from my upbringing as well, of things that I'm trying to wash and clean out of my vessel and my psyche. And so, and cannabis helped me do that, and is helping me do that. And that's part of the energy regulation. That's part of one of the questions that I received prior to this, was the spiritual and the mental work, was your energy is always being regulated. The practice is having the awareness of where your energy is stuck, where it's flowing, where it's emptying from, and how you can best have the awareness to cultivate an awareness and to execute and have some control over that. And so that goes back to the question, do you have your mind, or does your mind have you? And all of the things that we're bombarded with are trying to take our minds from us. And so my grandmaster, Dr. Yong's teacher, he was an old Taiwanese man. He passed away last year in his 80s, maybe 90s. And he would tell us, when he visited us on the mountain, and if you've ever been to the house on the campus, there's the kitchen in the house, and then there's the door to the pantry next to the kitchen. And my my Tai Chi grandmaster, he was demonstrating for us, and he was lecturing one day for us, and he goes, "Let me show you how strong I am." And he would play ukulele, and he would sing like old American folk songs. oh, Susanna, don't you? So I have this endearing image of him. So him at the same time, he's teaching us, and he says, he lifts up his pant leg and he shows his shins, and he says, "Come here, feel my shins." He's 80 years old. Pick them, touch them, feel how strong they are. Right. So he's showing us his cultivation and his strength. And then he goes to the door next to the island in the kitchen, and he goes, "Let me show you how strong my head is on that door." He opened it, and he headbutts the door. So that was our grandmaster. And what he would tell us is, eat good food, right? Drink good water, read good books, have good friends, watch good things, and essentially be aware of your inputs. Be aware of all of the inputs and be aware of your environment. And that's one of the lessons that Dr. Yang always taught us too, in terms of Qigong. You have to have and cultivation and self-improvement. You have to have a good environment to do that. You have to have the partners, you have to have the funding. Someone said, where did the funding come from this? So you have to have the money, you have to have the teacher, you have to have the time, and you have to have the partnership and the environment to do all that, which is a huge feat. He was able to do it because he had acquired a mass following, and he had acquired wealth from his publications. And then he had also got some sponsorships, and he started a nonprofit organization. So he was able to almost fund it. Well, he had to put in, I think, about 60 to 80 grand a year. And it was probably around 90 to 100, 110 grand for the all 10 years.
Did you guys grow food and have animals and things there that you was part of all of it?
A huge part of it was like self-sufficiency that I had to learn. I grew up as an 80s, 90s kid, everything at the press of a button. Right?
Well, and that's, like funny, we say that now, and then fast forward 30 years and it's like actually at the press of a button, right? Like what we thought was convenient then is like, I have no patience for anymore. I'm sorry, a rotary phone? No, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I have a building
Um,
up front.
So I
That
learned to grow
building up
food.
front by the house when you first come in on the right-hand side. I went in there before I left by myself and was just doing a little meditating in there, and I found it very peaceful. What was that for?
Yeah, that's where we originally started meditating at 6 a.m. I remember, I have memories of showing up there 6 a.m., completely dark, and there's already people sitting in, and you just come, as quiet as you can. When there was only 5 of us, and then the group got bigger, and so we moved into the house and we meditated in the house. We
and
were
I think
allowed
Alex,
we were allowed to leave because it was structured similar to that of college and school. So we had well, for the most part, we were pretty much stuck on the hill. Essentially, yeah, you felt like you were stuck on the hill. It was nice to go out and buy groceries because we would get a break, or it was nice if Dr. Yang brought you to drive for him to run errands in town to buy like supplies, for gardening or something like that. It's nice to have that breakaway. It's nice to have people that visit too, because they would be like new energy, and they would ask you questions, they would engage you, and for the most part, you're just like getting, beat up the whole day. So
it's been really fun to hear how this all ties into a lot of what we're doing up there, and just like you can feel that property has such unique, special energy. And so it's been fun to get to hear that firsthand experience about it. And hopefully, I know you have a spot in Garberville, correct, where you host some events and you do some of these things. Maybe tell everybody about that, so when they're up there this summer, they can stop by.
Yeah, I hope a specific time. I don't know what that means, but
We're on the East Coast.
I decided I decided to stay here and the place and the lifestyle, the culture, and part. So one of the reasons that I got involved with the local community too was because for a lot of times we stayed up on the hill and we didn't really interact with anyone in the community, except for people in Salmon Creek who were all like farmers, back to the landers. There was a lot of weed growers, and one of the students that would come on summer workshops was a local legacy weed grower, and his father was one of the back to the landers who founded Bryceland community and the community, the school and center. So his son, a couple of years older than us, his name was Dow. So this guy is so influenced by Eastern culture to name his son Dow. And so his son would come, and I had to ask him, I said, so is this Dow, like the Dow is? Yeah. He's like, yeah, my name is Tao, Dow. I said, so that's so interesting. I want to meet your dad and talk to him. And I have been able to meet him, and now, yeah, he's a friend. But so he would come and train with us, and he actually helped facilitate me off of the mountain and introduce me to the community. And he brought me on his farm, and he taught me to grow weed. He taught me on his farm how to smoke weed, in the way that they smoke. And he mentored me on his farm in so many ways. And he died actually very young, around COVID. And it was a huge shock to the community, and left his wife and two young boys in charge of, his farm and his legacy. And I was able to take a step up and help her and help the family. And throughout COVID, I was learning to farm cannabis, and it was just such a huge gift, because I was able to be outside, I was able to be with plants, and I was able to commune with the plant, and I was in still a beautiful zone, while so many people, I realized, were like locked inside. And I grew more roots in the community, and I grew a better appreciation of the lifestyle out here, the opportunity to live a lifestyle outside of what we call the matrix, and still be able to survive. But it's a very humble living. I live minimally. I'm off grid, and I have to do all of this maintenance on water and electricity and solar. And I'm currently powered off of hydroelectricity right now. So it's a huge difference growing up in the 80s and 90s, on all of the things that were press of a button, which I'm okay with. But so in town, what we're doing is I partnered with another grower who wants to give back to the community in town. We're in the town of Garberville, which is like suffered a huge economic setback, as you guys know, with the cannabis industry's crash and trying to pick itself up. It's like, what are we doing? Where are we going? And how do we continue to survive and still live in the community behind the redwood curtain? It's really hard to it's not hard to live, but it's now hard to have an income that can help you raise your family, but also contribute to the community, contribute to local businesses. So what we're doing is resourcing our local health and wellness practitioners, our yogis, our meditators, and the farming community. The farming community who has sort of, in a way, been underground, learned how to live underground for a long time, as part of the Back to the Land movement, as part of the counterculture movement outside of essentially mainstream society. And so we're collecting ourselves, and we're collecting our emotional stability, our mental stability through these ancient practices and the ancient wisdom, and reviving them, you know, in this collapsing world. So that's what we're offering, and what we're calling people in who resonate with that. And we're hosting workshops, we're doing classes. So I drive to town 4 days a week, and I do a Qigong class. And I've gotten involved with the local radio show. I do a show called Chi Talks. So I volunteer with the community a lot. My girlfriend, she also trained with Dr. Young, so she lived on the mountain for 3 years. and she's become a kindergarten teacher. She teaches Qigong to the community there, to the kids, to the teachers. And so I'm slowly coming out of my shell, off of the hill. I do have an online presence. My partner and I have a YouTube channel, Qigong and Tai Chi with Javi and Nona. Last year, I published an app, so you could go to on the Apple Store. You can go to Yin Yang University and find my app, and you can download my app right now. And I have a free course that you can download. And so I'm doing a lot of things that I'm not necessarily skilled or versed with, but I realize in order to satisfy my oath to my teacher to pass on the knowledge, it's incumbent on me to be able to reach more people. And so that's what I'm trying to do, trying to share the knowledge and expose people, you know, to the ancient wisdom, and trying to be a vessel to propagate the arts and the wisdom and the knowledge, and give hope. Thank you.
Nice to see it being carried on too. Because you know, once the elders die, it's not passed on. We lose all that, whether it's in our own families or extended families. So,
That this
Absolutely.
thanks, Alex.
totally miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry about that. I was looking for the YouTube page to drop in the chat for you there, Javier.
Yeah, thanks. Here, let me see if I can grab the app. So Dr. Young, if you don't know his story, he moved to the West to study at Purdue. Well, he graduated from Purdue, and his master died while he was in school, and his goal was to go back and train and learn from his teacher after he graduated from college, and he wasn't able to do that, and he was just heartbroken. So he committed himself and promised to his teacher that he would continue to pass on the knowledge. And so he himself suffered from, of course, grief, but what's this term that we use today? The imposter syndrome. He himself suffered from imposter syndrome, and that was part of his discipline and his consistency too, and showing up and continuing to learn. So he promised his teacher there at his teacher's tombstone that he wasn't going to take his knowledge to the grave, because he was so heartbroken that his teacher took so much knowledge to the grave and wasn't able to pass it on. And I can, from my observation, in a world that's trying to limit the perspective and construct a narrative for us, we need to unearth and propagate and share the ancient wisdom and knowledge. And I just think to myself, you know, 8,000 years of study in these Eastern arts, 8,000 years of study, these arts and the skills and the technology and the knowledge has gone through and survived many regimes. So that's kind of also what brings me hope. The Qigong lens gives me a hope and a transcendent, elevated, high vibe potential, right? To transcend all the mud.
That's fantastic. I want to be respectful of your time, and I know people might start dropping off here pretty soon. I'd love for you to share with us a
Thank you.
little bit about like what conscious cannabis consumption means to you and how you've started to apply this level of mindfulness to these newer like consumptive habits of yours and this integration into the Humboldt space, because it's a beautiful space you guys are cultivating. It's amazing how you're bringing the wellness to the forefront, but keeping the cannabis alive as part of the deep culture here in a way that is more about how the locals perceived it as opposed to how the green rushers perceived it. And it's a big part of what we've been trying to do here on this campus and the mindset that I try to bring to it in terms of how do you approach this in the most mindful way and with the most depth of reasoning. And so I'd love to hear some of that from
Thank you. I totally appreciate that. And you really stimulated my thought. And so when you presented the opportunity to me to present a question to your audience here, my path and my journey has so someone asked me, now what, right? Okay, so now I have to go against the grain in my field. I have to go against the grain, and I have to present myself and submit myself to, in a way, academic rigor in my field. So the cannabis aspect is not necessarily embraced and very frowned upon in my field of study. So my destabilizing activity and challenge now is presenting myself as a legitimate Qigong facilitator, Tai Chi facilitator, and presenting a legitimacy, for cannabis as well. So that's one of the questions and the opportunities you presented to me, Alex, right? Well, how would you perceive, or how would you encourage me to present conscious cannabis in a way that can be received? And that's really the world that I live in too, in terms of a martial artist, a mediator, and a Tai Chi artist in society. How do we meet the world where they're at, and meet the world in a way where you can be received, not in a way that's combative, and not in a way that just escalates conflict and divisiveness. And so here the practices and the arts present this opportunity. So as a meditator and as a observer and as someone just like always in my head too, connecting to the earth, connecting to the heaven, the sky energy, understanding that, hey, it's not all about me, and it's not all about my, comfort zone or my challenge. I'm just a vessel. If cannabis chooses to use me, why not? It's not about me. And maybe that's part of my journey, maybe not. But I was presented with cannabis, like I said, coming off of the hill, coming off the mountain, and being presented with a job. Hey, here's an opportunity to make some money. And then I learned, and I had to take time with the plant, cultivating, growing, and caring for the plant it was a disarming activity for me, in terms of I had to heal my nervous system, and I had to heal my emotional response to weed, because growing up in Texas as a Mexican, I couldn't afford to be caught with weed, and I was indoctrinated. If I was if I ever went if I was caught with drugs, I would either end up in dead or in prison, right? And so weed was a drug, and so I obviously, like, I participated with cannabis and when I was in high school and college and whatnot. But the setting is not that of a protective, safe environment. So what did I have to do to engage with weed? I had to numb myself with alcohol. And so that experience now with cannabis consumption is a whole different experience. And being through all of the stuff I've been through, the learning, the training that I've been through, I have this whole experience when I interface with something. So my mentor said, take one hit, walk away. That was part of my practice. Take one hit, walk away. And so I've built on that. And I've been able to interface with it and learn about myself and have that whole internal and energetic and reflective process that comes with interfacing with the herb. So I mean, that's a whole journey and conversation in and of itself that I'd really like to get involved with as well. How does those two energies merge? That's the story of Qigong that's really alive right now. It's like, how are we affecting one another? How do we affect one another? How does nature affect us? And that was one of the questions that was asked. How do the redwood trees affect us when we come face to face with one of those redwood trees, or with the Black Sands beach in Shelter Cove, or with the Eel River, or with all of the streams, these untouched zones? Like, at the campus, you have this opportunity to hike down to the creek, not the creek that's accessible by road, but the opposite creek. That's an untouched zone. There's a waterfall there. And just interfacing with that is a whole energetic circulatory experience as well, in the same way that smoking herb is too. And it's all intimate. And for me, for my journey, I had to sit with it. I had to sit with the plant, with myself, in silence, in a meditative experience, and on the farm as well, to see who I was with the plant, and to see what the plant was for me. And that's a whole different environment than being in a social setting and partaking with cannabis, weed, in a social setting, which is a whole other experience, a whole other interfacing and a converging of energies, which I'm sure we've all experienced, right? So conscious cannabis is mental health, well-being, awareness, and holding space for ourselves to interface, whether it's sound bath, or whether it's a yoga posture, whether it's running the mountain, or whether it's tai chi form, holding space for ourselves as we're all going through a journey, a process, and our mental health and our mental stability is determined by moment. And it all has to do with who and what is around us. And that's what conscious cannabis is holding that space and utilizing it, accepting it, and accepting it as something that comes from the earth, trying to wrap our heads around how we got to this place of what's it called, propagandizing society against a plant, and then unwrapping all of that. So that's the vision and the goal for Conscious Cannabis. Workshops, retreats, online visions, and hopes to do publications, written, online print, with audio and video podcast as well. So that's all being organized, and the seeds are being planted right now as we speak, which is, I had no idea I'd ever envisioned myself here, but here's where I am, and just enjoying the journey. So I
Good luck in your
appreciate
future.
thanks. I appreciate your time and your attention
Thank
and
you for
your
sharing.
interest. Thank you. Yeah.
And I don't know if you're aware of this saying, but there's a famous Bob Marley quote, that's when you smoke the herb, it reveals you to yourself. And it kept coming up in my head as you were speaking, because it is, we tend to glaze over the deeper parts of cannabis culture for the more theatrical parts. But a lot of those who have driven this culture forward in deeper ways are mirror a lot of what you say in terms of their relationship to the herb, where it did, before it was this huge source of capitalism and financial gain and became an industry, it was driven by people that resonated with it energetically, that pushed it forward because they believed in it. And those things came from this relationship to yourself and to the community around you, right? And how that reflective process allows you to grow. And I just think it's so beautiful that you guys are cultivating that space. And obviously, we're really excited here on campus, or just me personally, to support in any way possible. Because it is absolutely what this whole area needs, is this divine healing and like new relationship to the plant and ourselves within this space. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us today. Are there any other questions or comments before we?
Super, super cool. And definitely, I think we should be on the lookout for you as everybody makes their way out there this summer. So
yeah, I would love to interact and interface with like-minded folks, and those that also see themselves on a similar journey. So I just shared in the chat the link to my app there.
Oh, beautiful. Will you send it to me and I'll resend it to everyone with the replay? That would be amazing. And then we can make sure they all know where to find you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, Alex. Thank you for hosting and for walking us through. Tomorrow night, we're going to do something very different. Tomorrow night, we're going to roll out our new corporate tool, Slack. It's maybe the antithesis of this, but in some ways we have to find the balance between, moving into this new space where we're working and organizing and need tools to do that. But taking some of this same energy with us, which I love. And then on Thursday night, we will look at our final cultivar, number 3 from Bernie Cannabis. I've seen a little preview in our chat, and it looks like people are very, very excited about number 3. So orders are shut down for our March Farm Focus. If you have ordered with Alex and haven't done all your final details, check your Signal chat for that. Also, if you're looking to add on, I think the temple balls are all gone, but you can still add on some tea and I think flour and gummies. Is that right?
Yes, there's some flour and gummies, but please let me know like ASAP if you want anything additional for the menu, because right now, anyone who hasn't gotten back to me, whatever their current order is going to start just going into boxes.
Yeah, it might be too late.
So it's not too late, but after today it will be.
Yeah. Okay, today is it. No time like the present.
Yeah.
All right.
Yesterday was like my theoretical cutoff, and so today's the real cutoff.
All right. We appreciate you for that.
Totally.
Everybody have a great week. I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.